Okay, we're at Agileadria 2013. My name is Marco Chieba, and I have a privilege to be talking to Andrea Tomasini. And maybe to start the conversation up, could you just introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you for the interview first. My name is Andrea Tomasini. I am one of the founders of Agile42, which is an agile coaching company. And we specialized in helping company moving toward a more agile way of working. We do that since 2005. So it's pretty long on the market. And my background is technical, so I've studied software engineering. And I became to the coaching profession in late 2004. And since then, I always try to evolve the way we can help people really achieving their goal and working better together, using possibly agile approaches.
Okay. I know that many of your talks are somehow focusing on the management in the agile world.
Yeah.
So what is actually wrong with traditional type of management?
Well, there is nothing wrong with the type of management. The thing is, the management we traditionally know since years now, because all stemmed out of the original management approach from Taylor from 1911 on his treaty on scientific management. And since then, we actually try to evolve many aspects of management, but didn't really change the paradigm. And the problem is, in a world where we are living today, where time to market is very demanding and every company is striving for innovation, we live in a globalized environment where company cannot hide themselves anymore behind the finger. The internet completely changed the way the economy works, and in such an environment we need to have a workforce which is engaged with what they are doing. And the typical concept of management is actually making a foul of this idea. So instead of motivating people and engaging people, the traditional approach is about remote steering employees and measuring them as individual, checking compliance and checking rules rather than focusing on the outcome. And this is why the entire concept of having a defined process approach to do creative work doesn't fit together. And also the fact that defined process brings together with it the concept of hierarchy. So we didn't have role and job description and responsibility splitting. That's an outcome of the fact that we decide to define processes and model processes in subsequent step of refinement until we come from an original idea to a final shippable product. And that involved, in order to be able to define which responsibility and skill are needed for each of the transformation in this workflow, brought us to define role. And role ended up being in a hierarchy because the one who owns the company and delegates responsibility to the leaf of the hierarchy needs to be sure that is delegated just the bit which is needed in order to perform an activity. So we try to make out of people machines and put them in boxes and having them execute according to a plan. But in today's world, it's not enough anymore to execute. We need to use all the brains we have in an organization. So this is why the traditional concept of management doesn't really work in today's environment. There's not really specifically anything to do with Agile at all. It's just that Agile offers a paradigm shift which focus more on self-organizing teams, on teams which potentially have diversity of skills inside, which helps brainstorming faster, which helps verifying idea faster, which helps coming to what the customer really want, probably with shorter feedback loop, much faster and with a higher level of quality. And that's only possible if, as manager, we understand that we need to change the way we deal with people and with the organization. So in an agile approach, what I like and what I see that people start to get more and more is that it's fundamentally focusing on value. So as in a team, the structure of the team and the role of the people inside the team is not important because the team focuses in getting value and they self-organize, meaning they build structure and organization on demand based on what in every moment in time is the best way to achieve the defined value. The same should do a company. So an agile company should be in such a situation that structure and organization are just ways, are instruments, are tools to reach this value delivery. So by focusing on value and the client first, then you can build structure and organization which are as less strict as possible, so reduce the amount of constraint as few as possible, just enough as is needed to govern an organization, but not more than that, and let it emerge from the need of delivering value rather than imposing it from top down. This is why it's difficult to do it, because it's a completely opposite way of thinking.
Mm-hmm. So you were saying that actually there is a need for management, but it's just the role that it's going to take in the organization is different. And you were actually talking about the manager cleaning the deck for the people working in the organization.
So
what is the deck?
What I was talking about, think about this paradigm. Until now we had the pyramid concept. So there is a pyramid, and on top of it there is the CEO. And the CEO is the chief executive officer in an organization. So when we talk about working in an agile way, we would like to see this type of pyramid where the CEO is the chief enabling officer. And being an enabling person means you're actually facilitating and allowing your organization to produce value. Today we have so many impediments on the way. So by understanding the need of shifting the weight of these people, of the management role, from maybe 80%, 90% sometimes of operational work, managing the daily problems, and the fact that processes are faulty, and the fact that people are not fulfilling their job because they don't have the big picture and they don't understand exactly what needs to be done, and only 20% dedicating to propagating a vision or strengthening a strategy throughout the organization, which is more a role of a leader somehow. Leadership is about aligning people inside an organization toward a common goal. Is about providing them with the tools they need to do their job, and giving them a clear big picture and a goal, and helping them measuring themselves so that they can improve over time. So today we still have a lot of organizations where the role of the manager, and I don't think any manager actually like it, to spend half of the day or even more running after problems and shutting down fire left and right. So we would like all more to do more strategic type of work and enabling our workforce to work better together. So in the attempt of shifting the amount of work that we do for operational reason or tactical reason to the work we should do more as a leader towards strategic goals, we invented a tool which is called deck, which is a metaphor to say, well, if you are in a sailing boat and you are racing and you are at the helm and you are trying to steer the boat, to give a direction to the boat, there are so many agents which contribute and influence the fact that you can actually steer the boat in the right way. And the only way you will be able to win the race and to achieve the goal you want to achieve is by having the whole crew on your boat acting as a self-organizing team. They know the rules, they know the constraint, but the only way is to keep the deck clean, to make sure that everything is in place, that everything is where it should be, because then you don't lose time, nobody falls off board, meaning you don't lose people because everyone buys into the vision and the thing they are doing. So we created a deck, which is actually an acronym which stands for direction, meaning every time I want to delegate as a manager some of the work I'm doing on a daily basis and is operational, and I realize that's operational, then I need to create a relationship of trust with someone else in the organization to whom I can delegate this operational work, so that I will be sure it's going to be made anyway, but I will have more time to do strategic work. So the direction is about, for example, let's say our self-organizing team are demanding to have internal test server, or every time they need provisioning of some type of hardware or software to do their job better. The purchasing process is very complicated, and I'm the manager who is required to sign this process every time. But according to our organization, we always need to ask for 3 offers, for example, and wait for the time to vet the offer, and then an order will be made, and then I have to approve the order and then sign the order. And by the time I get the order, probably the price already changed and the situation on the market changed already. And the team is still waiting, and the team is there and can't move. So at the end of the day, I am responsible for the budget. So the best thing I can say is, okay, I set as a direction, I want to delegate the purchasing of technical resources to my team or to one person which is close to the team, like a team assistant. And then I need to define what is the environment in which this delegation is occurring. So what are the resources, what is the situation? So if we talk about a team context, then the environment is clearly the team. So at the team level, I want the team to be able to purchase the resources they need to do their job. And then I need to define which constraints are needed. This is the C of DEC. So under which assumption can I operate or feel comfortable in delegating this power to purchase to my team? And in that case, for example, we can set a maximum amount of money per order that the team can spend, or a maximum budget per year. If people are responsible and you can trust them, you can trust that they won't consume more than that budget anyway. And then we have to decide which type of knowledge do we need to inject into that system in order for that system to be able to actually perform the new action that we want to delegate. Simple things goes from how does our purchase process work? Does the team know how to do that? Are they allowed to just go on Amazon and buy something, or they need to present an offer, to go to the purchase office, to open a purchase order or whatever? So all these type of things are things they need to know, because otherwise they will never be able to take over the job I'm doing. And so as a manager, my responsibility, in order to shift more away from the operational work and more focusing on strategy, I need to trust that all the traditional management responsibility which are assigned to a manager, which typically requires also staffing, resourcing, planning, and all these type of things, can be done and executed effectively by someone else, which is probably in the team directly or between me and the team in some way. And I need to build that trust relationship. I'm not just saying, now you are empowered, do it, because that's never going to work. So I need to be sure that the people can do the job, and the people, before taking the responsibility, need to be sure that I'm not trying to find or to create a structure to blame them or to reduce their level of freedom or pointing the finger if something goes wrong. So it's a mutual trust that needs to be built. And for this, we normally use situational leadership. And situational leadership means, hey, I'm selling you a concept, so I'm coming with my deck card in my hand and say, guys, I would like to delegate you this. What do you think about that? And then I try to achieve some type of commitment from the team or from one or two persons who feel responsible enough to do it. And then we go from selling to participating, meaning that, oh, we do that together. Come with me, the next time I show you what I do, I show you what the purchase system looks like, how you have to handle purchase order, and then I build trust and the other person build trust on me that I'm not trying to, you know, box them in any form. I'm just trying really to delegate things, and we can agree on what are rule of engagement which makes sense. In a way, I'm coaching the team to learn to do also this process. And then the question is, does it make sense that the team is overloaded with extra job? Actually,
which happens a lot.
Which happens a lot. The problem is, what is the alternative? So if the team accepts that this is a good idea, or if the team said, well, we don't want to do that, but we recognize that the current approach is very slow, it's costing us a lot of inefficiency because we have to wait months sometimes. And sometimes we stop asking for resources because we know it's never going to happen. So we keep on working in a suboptimal state. So who else closer to the team can take over that? A team assistant or somebody else, or a group leader which is between the team and the management? I don't know, but fact is one of the current problem, which is somehow slowing down the team and taking my time, which is precious time, is signing paper. And if I can create an environment in which this sign of paper is delegated to the right level of responsibility within clear constraint, I think, and I mean, we use it a lot in many organizations, and it works very well. It takes time to get to the right place, but it's a good exercise for managers to learn how to coach the team and show them first how to do things and support them, and then when the trust is completely built, then delegate completely. And see how much the teams then takes the power and understand the ownership of what they're getting. Now the purchasing of technical resources is a simple example, but you could think about extending that to hiring new people into a team, to assigning bonus to individual, to decide together what are the best individual objectives for every person in the team, because then everybody will try to fulfill those objectives, because they're becoming an asset for the whole team when things are done. So the idea is that you can actually include in the process of delegating incrementally more and more power and responsibility to the team, almost all the function that a manager would do in terms of staffing and resource management, and focusing more on the leadership aspect of it, which is a long-term investment, which in terms of cultural change is much more important than spending the time half of the day running after solving problems. So it's much more valuable for an organization to pass the culture across to the all new people coming in, to the people who have still difficulty understanding how to self-organize and how to take ownership on things and so on. I think this is much more valuable, and nobody else than our manager can do that work.
But you said that the team needs to understand that the delegation that takes place from the ex-manager, so to say, to the team for doing things that were under his responsibility. First, the team needs to understand why they are doing that, and it's not some extra job that is dumped over to them, since it's just an ex-tester that is now doing more stuff that he was doing in previously.
It's not about delegating, it's about accepting the fact that the team identifies a problem, which normally, if you do Scrum, pops up as an impediment. And then instead of being always you, the active person who removes this impediment, try to understand what are the current structure and infrastructure in place which forbid the team to solve that impediment themselves. And that's where you try to create a container where the power of the team grows over time by delegating to them more responsibility. And if the team says, wait a minute, we are here to build value, we are not here to purchase things. So unless this process is a 5-minute thing and we can solve it ourselves, which is okay, then we don't want to do it. But we also recognize that the current way we are doing it is not effective, because sometimes it takes 3 months. So we need to solve a structural organizational problem somehow. And the traditional approach of saying escalate to the manager, it doesn't make the manager a leader, because the manager, when the organization really starts to scale agile and people are really committed in finding impediment, it will be overloaded by a huge amount of organizational impediment, which probably it can solve, but it can solve somehow ad hoc every time, it can solve with intervention and things which clearly go beyond what the structure and the process are at that moment. So it's okay for a while, but it's not a sustainable and long-lasting solution. So the long-lasting solution is trying to challenge the organization and understand why these impediments are happening at all. And the way to do that, and this is unfortunately one of the most abused words in English, which is empowerment. It's really about defining, in the context of a team, in the environment of a team, what power does the team have, in which context and under which constraint. And this is what makes a little bit the DEC approach a very structured approach to try to delegate and experiment.
Does that need to be explicit? What is the level of the power that the team has in a certain system?
I think if you can make that explicit, will be much better for the team to understand how they can self-organize. Because one of the worst things that happen is that the team gets somehow empowered by words, but by facts and deeds it's not really clear what the team can do and what the team can't. And this is obviously a blocker in terms of self-organization. Because if I am in a team and I'm not really sure about what I can do and what I cannot do, a little bit because we are all lazy and we try to come to a solution faster, but we tend to avoid, to challenge things which are in place. If you are not really sure, we tend to take the easy way. The problem is the easy way is not always the simplest one, and is not always the more convenient one. So we end up building dysfunction in our organization just because we try to avoid asking the hard question and having the hard conversation. So one thing that helped the team also making things explicit and around which they can self-organize is the usage or the utilization of the core protocols. I know I mentioned already that one time. The core protocols is a collection of behavioral protocols which helps regulating relationship between two people. Other things like non-violent communication or crucial conversation also sometimes. These are all things that as leader we need to teach to our team. in order to have a team constantly feeling empowered and also feeling comfortable in challenging the status quo, rather than just saying it by words. So give them tools and infrastructure that they can use.
Okay. And we have seen that Scrum being the most widely used process these days is somehow kind of hard to do right. So there is many companies and many teams that say they're doing Scrum, but they're not getting the benefits that they could be getting out of the system. So why is it so hard to do Scrum in the right way?
Well, there are many reasons why it's hard to do Scrum in the right way. The thing is that Scrum is a simple framework, but it's not easy. And the reason why it's not easy is because being simple, behind the Scrum framework there are a lot of assumptions. So the culture that needs to be in place in order to be supportive of the Scrum framework as a way of working together to be effective is enormous. And if you come from the wrong perspective and you don't understand that culture, and I'm talking about simple thing, not just the Agile principles and values or the Scrum values, but also simple thing like the pull principle. If people don't understand that the Scrum framework was created in a context where pulling work was preferred from pushing work, you can still do Scrum in a mechanical way, exactly like the book describes it, but you're still pushing things through. So it's not uncommon to see a planning meeting where the project manager became the product owner, the team leader became the Scrum master, and at the planning meeting the project manager or product owner is actually dividing the work among the team members and it asking for individual commitment. And you would say, okay, we are doing Scrum, we are doing a planning meeting, it's time boxed, we have user story, we have a backlog, but the way the mechanics works also and the principle behind are not well understood. And that's why in many situations also when you see a team and you ask a team to give a commitment, many people think that the team can predict the future and will be for sure able to define what will be done in 15 days and exactly. So that's also not the right way of dealing. So you ask the team how much of the work which is in the backlog they think they can successfully complete. And that's our job. And you have to recognize the fact that working in complex environment requires self-organization, because self-organization allows the team to have the fastest possible feedback loop over 24 hours with the daily Scrum, for example, to assess if the hypotheses they made to solve a problem at the beginning are still verified after 1, 2, 3, or 4 days. And if they are not, the team is empowered to completely throw away the plan and figure out better way to achieve that goal. And in this type of thinking, it's supported by a lot of literature and culture, like we said, the pull principle, iterative and incremental development. Why we do that? Because we know that the best way of learning is to come with a finished product or something as close as possible to that and get real feedback from stakeholder or from the product owner. And then why we talk very much about lean thinking, because lean thinking gave us a systemic way of understanding how our system works and looking where are flows which are unnormalized and try to normalize them, removing wasteful activity to reduce the lead time and come to understand if what we build is really the right thing or not as fast as possible. And this is where we talk about validated learning. Validated learning means I didn't read it on a book or is his opinion, but hey, we tried to build it and it works. This is validated learning. And that's the only thing that counts, because when you are in a complex environment, everything keeps on moving, whether you want it or not, and is keeping on influencing your system and what you are building anyway. So the only way to get out of it is to come as often as you can with a stable product, which can be inspected again, which can be evaluated and assessed somehow from the people who actually will need to use it. So all this culture which is behind the Scrum framework, like is behind every other Agile approach, included the simple concept of empirical control, of being able to measure the outcome over time rather than predicting the deliverable based on estimates and managing the time. That's a very hard job when the deliverable constantly change and when the environment in which you made the estimates constantly change. So that's not anymore a system of work which is suited to manage the majority of the project we see today running on the market. And if people don't understand this, they can take whatever framework out of the Agile umbrella and it probably won't work. Because, I mean, they are so simply defined that you can misuse them in any possible way.
But it's necessary for everybody that's participating. Is it necessary for all the team members to understand what you were saying, to understand the concept of the pull principle and the empirical approach?
Also the exercise you made yesterday about the continuous flow. I mean, if people don't understand that limiting the batch size and reducing the inventory of work in the short terms is actually speeding up the team, and also the same reason is why the team invests heavily on agile engineering practices. Why are they doing that and why is it necessary? The answer is simple. If you start a new project, let's say you implement 3 features in one iteration, you can test them manually. But then the second iteration you implement other 3 or 4 maybe, then you find out that you need to test 7 if you want to guarantee that the product is again in a stable state, and so on and so forth. You keep on accumulating work until a point where you won't have enough time to actually be able to do new functionality, because most of the time of your iteration is spent in doing manual testing. And how can you reduce the complexity of the code? Because the problem is when you don't know everything from the beginning, and we can't make that assumption, we need to work in an iterative way. And that is where we talk about emergent design and architecture, because we focus on solving a specific problem in the fastest possible way. And that's where test-driven development helps, for example, or acceptance test-driven development. You focus on a problem, you solve it. But then the next problem comes, and then you need to realize that there are some similarities with the problem you solved before. And then you do refactoring and redesign. And the reason why you do that is because you don't want to have duplicated code, or code which is very similar and is doing the same thing, because the more line of code you have to maintain and evolve and to somehow support, the more likely will be that it will be harder actually to find defects and to make sure that the code remains solid and easy to maintain. So it's somehow a consequence of the fact that because we don't know what we don't know at the beginning, and the only way to find out is by coming iterative and incrementally as fast as we can and as often as we can with something inspectable on which we can get real feedback. This is a necessity. So we can't do that if we are not automating a test, if you are not writing tests first, if you are not having a good coverage, if you are not sure that by pressing a button we will have a verification, a feedback on the fact that our platform is still stable and can be inspected. Because if we fail to come with something inspectable, we fail to learn. And if we fail to learn, potentially all the time we spend and invested to do that work is waste. Because we don't know if what we build is the right thing or not. So that's the best way of reducing business risk, which is about how do we know we are building the right thing? And the answer is by iterating and incrementally delivering more and more functionality and getting feedback out of it all the time.
Okay, and we'll learn more about that on your today's keynote.
Right, so my today keynote is very much focused on principle versus practices, and why many people get fooled about we are doing agile because we are doing some agile practices, but that's not working. So unless you know the principle behind, you can still try to do the practices, but you will do them wrong. And I'm going to make some funny example this afternoon about how you can do practice wrong.
Thanks a lot, Andrea.
You're welcome.